All right, so today we're going to be talking about unemployment. Before we even get into sort of how economists think about unemployment, how we calculate the unemployment rate, what's the official economic definition of unemployment, we're going to talk about, well, why the heck should we care about this thing? So first of all, you can probably guess unemployment just means people are out of work, right? Well, why do we care about that? Well, first of all, unemployment can be a symptom of recession. So if lots of people are unemployed, that means something has gone wrong with the economy. We're in a period of very severe contraction, right? So you might be familiar with as the coronavirus recession started, excuse me, unemployment went way up. So we want to keep an eye on unemployment because it can tell us other things about how the economy is doing. Not only that, but high unemployment can actually also contribute to recession, since unemployed workers can't buy as many products, which means that demand across society goes down and businesses have to lay off even more workers, contributing to unemployment. So it's a vicious cycle here, right? And then, of course, we as a society need to decide to what extent are we going to support unemployed workers? Are we going to say, hey, you lost your job, tough luck, you need to survive on your own? Or are we going to do things like implement unemployment benefits? All right, so let's actually get into what unemployment is and how the unemployment rate is calculated. So first of all, the definition of unemployment is that people who are not currently employed and who are looking for work. And I didn't mention it at the top, but we're taking notes the way we usually are. So when you see that yellow word there, that's a term you should write down. That pink there is the definition, right? So again, unemployment, people who are not currently employed and who are looking for work. All right, so here's how we calculate the unemployment rate. The number of unemployed individuals in the labor force divided by the total civilian labor force. Well, what's the civilian labor force? People who are working or who are available for work, right? So the people who want jobs but maybe don't have them yet. And then there's another category here. Well, if there's a labor force, who's not in that labor force? So these are people who are unemployed but not looking for work. So you'll notice here, there's a distinction between people who are unemployed, right? And then people who are out of the labor force. So a person is only considered unemployed if they both don't have a job and they're looking for work. They're considered to be out of the labor force if they don't have a job, but they're not looking for work for whatever reason. So maybe they're disabled and they can't work. Maybe they're retired. Maybe they've just given up hope on ever finding a job. So what does this look like in practice? So let's calculate a hypothetical unemployment rate for a class, right? So suppose that 5 students in our class are unemployed and looking for work. Maybe 10 students in our class have jobs. 15 students are unemployed, but they're not looking for work. So what this means is that there's 30 students in our class, but the labor force is only comprised of 15 students. So you'll notice here, right, that's how we find it. So we take the students who are looking for work, right, but unemployed. So we have 5 of those. We have 10 students in our class with jobs, so who are working. Now, these students here, they don't count. They're out of the labor force, so we're not going to put them in our denominator, right? So all we want in our denominator is these 15 students who are either working or available for work, right? So what that means is we take 5 divided by 15, and then my screen is covering it, but we get a 33% unemployment rate, which is really bad. But that's just to illustrate, right? All right. Now, there are some problems with the unemployment rate, and you might already be starting to guess this based on how we figured out that denominator in the last slide, right? Well, the unemployment rate doesn't count discouraged workers, and those are people who want a job but have given up looking for work. So make sure you have that term in your notes, right? So these people are considered to be out of the labor force, and they're not counted as unemployed. So, for example, suppose this dude John, a software engineer, is laid off. He becomes very depressed, he stops looking for work, and he stays at home watching TV. So he's not looking for work at all, right? But, in a better situation, one that was less hopeless, he might want work, right? So it's kind of making our denominator on that unemployment rate unofficially, too small, shall we say, to really give us an accurate picture of what's going on here. All right. Now, additionally, the unemployment rate doesn't count what we call underemployed workers. So again, write down the yellow term, pink definition. And underemployed workers are people who are working jobs that are beneath their skill level, or they're working part-time jobs but would really prefer full-time jobs. So the unemployment rate considers these people to be employed, right? But their needs aren't really being met. So, for example, suppose there's a gal who graduates from college with a biology degree. She finds a full-time waitressing job that does not require a college degree. Would she rather a job that that she can actually use her biology degree for? Yes, absolutely. But she can't find it. She's still considered employed though. And moreover, here's another example. So suppose that Sarah would like a full-time secretarial job, but she can only find a part-time secretarial job. She might not be able to support herself on the salary of that job, right? But we're still counting her as employed. So basically, what we say when the unemployment rate, we say it has limitations. We say it doesn't count discouraged workers and it doesn't count underemployed workers. It's giving us kind of a false sense of security about how well people are doing, right? All right. So now let's move on. Let's talk about different types of unemployment. So economists break unemployment into 5 categories: frictional unemployment, structural unemployment, seasonal unemployment, cyclical unemployment, and technological unemployment. You don't have to write anything yet, but you're going to write these down as we go through this. All right, so the first type of unemployment is frictional unemployment. And these are people who are unemployed because they're moving from one job to another. So we're probably always going to have some degree of this unemployment in the economy. It's not really something economists are worried about, right? So for example, Claire quits her job in Oregon. She moves to California. She's considered frictionally unemployed while she is looking for work in California. All right, the next type of unemployment is structural unemployment. So again, term structural unemployment, write down the definition in pink. So this is a fundamental change in the way the economy is structured, and that reduces demand for workers. So this could be because of a change in industrial operations or consumer tastes or government spending, a decline of natural resources, etc., etc. So maybe there's a guy named Ryan, he's a commercial fisherman, and he loses his job because the area where he works is overfished. So economists are a lot more concerned about this type of unemployment because this is a long-term thing, right? We need to make sure that Ryan gets additional training so that he can pick up work in another industry because his job isn't coming back. All right, next type of unemployment is seasonal unemployment. And this is unemployment that fluctuates in a predictable way from season to season as a result of seasonal changes in weather, demand, or industry production schedules, etc., etc., etc. So suppose that Brian here is a mall Santa. Demand for mall Santas is reduced in the summertime, so Brian is unemployed in the summer. And again, this is one of those things because it's regular and predictable, and we know those people are going to find jobs pretty soon, right? Economists aren't as worried about this as they are as other types of unemployment. All right. Next type of unemployment is cyclical employment. And this is unemployment that results from recessions and depressions, that is, low points in the business cycle. So suppose that demand for housing is reduced during a recession. Jose, a realtor, loses his job because nobody is buying houses, right? So again, this is one of the types of unemployment that economists are pretty worried about, right? Because this signals that something has gone wrong with the economy. And we need to make sure that, well, if demand in that sector is not coming back, we figure out a way to help Jose, right? Or, if this is going to be a long-term thing, we find out some way to make sure that he's okay, right? So this is something that we're going to be looking at when we look at the coronavirus recession, right? Because as you can imagine, people who work in maybe the restaurant industry, the hotel industry, or the airline industry, they're going to be suffering from unemployment as a result of this particular recession. All right. Next up is technological unemployment. And this is unemployment caused by automation, which is the shift from using workers to using machines. So suppose that Amy works on the production line at Ford. Ford purchases car manufacturing robots, which can do Amy's job more quickly than she can, and she loses her job. And again, this is another type of unemployment that's going to be pretty concerning for economists, right? Because this is a long-term thing. Amy's not going to be able to go right back to her job, right? She's not going to be able to find a job at a different, car manufacturing plant because they're probably going to be using robots too, right? She's been put out of a job long-term. So again, we need to find some way to make sure Amy's okay. Either that's unemployment benefits or we're going to retrain her or do something else. All right. So we want to achieve full employment, which is the lowest possible level of unemployment in the economy. So again, write down that term, write down that definition in your notes. Now, notice that we say we want the lowest level of lowest possible level of unemployment in the economy. Now, we can't get to zero unemployment. Now, why can't we get to zero unemployment? What's going on there? Well, if you think about it, right? Certain kinds of unemployment are always going to be in the economy, right? So especially things like frictional unemployment and seasonal unemployment, right? So someone's always going to be between jobs. Somebody's always going to be working a seasonal job, right? We can't really get rid of that. So that's always going to be part of us, or always going to be with us, right? So instead of setting the target rate at 0% unemployment, the government sets a target rate of unemployment that's sort of like, again, the lowest possible rate. So currently our target rate is 4%. All right, where are we now? It's not great. So the unemployment rate is measured by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, so the government measures our unemployment rate. As of August 2020, our unemployment rate is at 8.4% in the country as a whole. California's doing worse. We're at 11.4%. Now, this is better than where it was in March and April, but it's still above that target rate, right? So that's going to be a problem that our society is going to need to deal with. All right. So how might we deal with that? So what happens to you if you get unemployed? Well, workers in California do not pay new unemployment insurance, actually. This is something that's paid for primarily by employers. So this is supposed to give employers an incentive not to lay off workers, right? So you have to apply for unemployment benefits yourself, though. They're not going to just fall into your lap. So problem, though. You are usually not eligible for unemployment if you quit. So wait till you get laid off. Don't quit if you hear layoffs are coming. And you also are not usually eligible for unemployment if you're fired for misconduct. So if you work at McDonald's and you steal from the register and you get fired for that, that's not going to you're not going to be able to collect unemployment benefits for that.